How has it been putting this
This is the inauguration of Latitude 59 that we are tracing, and we'll have a speech from President Kestu Kalilade.
CEO who's been kind of the person holding this all together and making the boat just smoothly go through where we are right now. So I want to invite Maria on stage and to give a short welcome from her as well.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Maria. I'm the head organizer of this year's Latitude 59. I had exactly one nightmare about this event, and it was about a month ago, and I dreamt that we're going to have a flood in the venue. And hey-ho, this morning, I received a message that there is a leak in the server room, meaning that the Wi-Fi that's feeding our ticket printers was taken off. So the one nightmare came true, but you're all here, and I really hope that the people outside will be here very soon as well, so we're doing everything to rectify this situation. But when we started putting this year's conference together, one thing became really, really clear, that Latitude 59 wouldn't be anything without you, without the connections you create here, and the conversations that you have here and carry on having after you leave Latitude. And while Latitude 59 is Estonia's flagship startup and tech event, then it's really more of an extended family reunion, isn't it? It's a family of about 2,500 people from all around the world, from about the 89 countries that we heard. And we're trying to create lots of different opportunities for all of you to get inspired, to matchmake, to network, to mingle, reflect, do business, chat and discuss, and we'll have fun in general. And obviously our MCs will tell you more about how it's all going to work over the next 2 days. But now, our first block of the day is called Entrepreneurial Ventures and State Funding. And we have the great pleasure to have such astonishing people discussing the state's role in encouraging entrepreneurship in general and about making investments. We have the most amazing Fleur Pellerin, who has experience from both sides in France, so as a former minister and now running her own venture capital fund. We have Dr. Noah Rafford, who works for the Dubai Future Foundation, and also do come to the party tonight because he will be DJing, so yay. And then the discussion is led by Eric Laguerre, who's the managing partner of ByFounders. But before we continue with the discussion, let's welcome the President of Estonia, Kestu Kalilade, on stage, who will also join us.
The President! He's much more popular than the Prime Minister.
Hi all. Dear guests of Latitude, glad to meet you again, those who have been here before, and welcome to the newcomers. It was only 2 years ago when I stood here and explained to you why and how we created in Estonia our digital state and society, and how the digitally disrupted society looks like and how it normally works, and if it doesn't work, then what happens in society. This will be discussed today. So, because 2 years is a long time, as you know, in tech development. First, 2 years ago, the share of the IT sector in Estonian GDP was about slightly above 4%. Now it is 7%. And the GDP has not been shrinking, may I assure you, it has been growing. So the trend of growth in this sector has been particularly strong. We are going not so much here in Estonia, but globally. Yes, Estonia is now growing globally in the world, also in Africa, or more exactly, unexpectedly well, I have to say, in Africa. Because that's the continent looking to leapfrog. That's the continent which is not held back by the frozen structures. And very importantly for Estonian companies, this is not a continent saturated with big tech companies who come with their solutions and say, please adapt your needs to my solutions. No. they are open to Estonian thinking that everything, particularly when you deal with the e-government and public e-services, has to be tailor-made, because this preserves the culture. Also, Estonian companies are well viewed abroad because you all know that Estonians lack workforce. Therefore, of course, they forge local partnerships with local SMEs, naturally with SMEs, because they're tiny themselves by all standards globally. So I think this is a very good example of 21st century win-win development economic cooperation, when you actually take a respectful view of the need to develop the economy of the country where you are selling your services. So thank you all Estonian ICT companies for being this great example of international trade and development. I'm so proud of you all, so if you would join me in applause for Estonian tech companies working abroad, please. I promised to tell you what happens if the digital society faces a hitch and cannot function properly. In the second half of 2017, Estonia was a victim of a famous chip problem of one international company. I'm too polite to name this company, but it provides chips for identity cards, not only here in Estonia, but also in many other countries. Also for similar functional cards, some door cards use the same chip, etc. Anyway, millions were affected, maybe 1 billion people were affected by this problem. But it only posed a serious risk for Estonia because it affected at least half of our ID cards. And I think by now most Estonians do not remember that we had this problem because it's long overcome, but the story, the case study is actually very interesting, so I want to share this with you because it's very instructive. Some countries who also had their ID cards based on the same chip, they just closed the identity cards, and it did not cause practically any article in the newspapers and absolutely no problem in the societies, which made us very sad because we realized that in many countries, even if digital IDs do exist, they are not used, because otherwise people would have had problems. In Estonia, of course, it caused a huge trouble. What we did learn was that once you have digitized your society and you have passed a certain line, you're thinking that, okay, if the digital does not function, I can do it on paper for a couple of days or weeks while I fix the problem. This is not an option anymore. Because the good thing is people are used to using digital services, and they absolutely don't know where to go and seek paper services. And if they could find the information about where to seek paper services, they so hate it that you will have a riot if you force them to. People coming from developed countries and elsewhere, they probably don't understand the Estonian population who, gets slightly nervous if the system of checking and applying for driver's licenses is down for 2 hours. I mean, come on, I couldn't renew my driver's license, what's going on? But if you suddenly face a horrible situation that you have to go and manually renew your digital ID card certificates in some police and border guard office, oh my God, the queues were kept down to, let's say, an hour, maybe an hour and a half at the worst cases. We almost had a riot. So you see, this is a lesson to all who are thinking of digitizing their countries and societies. You are on a different planet, then you are truly on a different planet. And there is no turning back, there is no way back. You have to have digital alternative to digital. You cannot function long with paper alternatives to digital. Maybe we could at the first few years after we had transformed to digital services. Nowadays we cannot. We must absolutely make sure that we have several ways of access to a digital state and a necessary level of application in the system so that the digital state itself can function at all times, simply because we are totally hopeless when it comes to paper. I think most Estonian people are therefore totally hopeless when they need to settle in the other countries as well, because they simply don't know how to do it, which is probably positive, because then they will appreciate our own low bureaucracy environment much more. I'm very happy about this. But what it taught us was this. Once taken the first step, you will be citizen-driven. And we are truly citizen-driven. where it is taking us now is to thinking of how AI, or rather the narrow formats of the AI, could be deployed in our public sector. And there is absolutely no question should we or should we not, because our people model our expectations on digital state on private sector. I mean, they see that private sector is offering something and they say, I want this from the public sector as well. And this means that we now have to start thinking about proactive state, proactive services, and we are thinking of proactive services. We already have one. If you are a retired person in Estonia and live alone, you are entitled to top up to your pension once a year. And these people do not even have to know about this service, that it exists, because the systems themselves are able to establish that the person is retired and lives alone. And of course, since we pay them their pension, we can simply add some top-up to it. So people just receive this money without any application. They don't have to log on and apply. They just get it. And people want more and more these kind of services nowadays. For example, if you know you are entitled to universal child support, and you know your state knows it too, and of course your state knows your bank account number because you pay them taxes, etc., then our people ask more and more often, why should I even apply? You know, I have the right, just give me this support. Leave me the opt-out. If I want to opt out, I will tell you I don't want to have a universal support. And of course, we are happy to serve our people here, and we think of developing these services, and we continue to do so, and they get more and more complex, and more often algorithms will be taking decisions about people. And then you have, as a state, a question. Where is the opt-in or opt-out for people from these services? Because yes, it is very comfortable if somebody pays you something automatically, but not all state services consist of a payment. For example, it is also possible to find out young inactive people looking at the data we have about them. We can check all school registries, and we can check our employees registries and employers registries, and notice that a young person does nothing. He's not also staying home with family or with children, nothing. An inactive youth. And then we now have a pilot program according to which this data is put together and given to a local government, which can send them their social services to look up what is wrong with these young people. Now it sounds perfectly positive and right, yet there are people who may want to opt out. Where is the point of opt-out? Because initially you don't know that somebody is looking at your data. Should we give them an opt-out at an early stage? Yes, they have an opt-out at that point when somebody comes and says, hi, I don't think you're working or doing anything, can I help you? Then you can simply say, go to hell, I don't want to see you. But technically, is this the right spot? Maybe it is, but we haven't discussed it as a society. So we more and more need to discuss this as a society. There are constantly questions that people ask is that, okay, there is a bunch of algorithms which take a decision about me. Who is going to explain me this decision which was taken about me? You as engineers, you know that you can build systems this way that they can and are able to explain to us how they arrived at the decision. And you can build the systems this way that it is not possible. It is a growing responsibility of engineering and ICT community itself towards the society that we do not lose the trust of people in these kind of developments, these kind of services. People need to understand, they need to be transparent, these services. And if a machine has taken a decision about me, and I don't like it, and I query about it, then the answer cannot be computer says no. We know very often with automatized visa applications, for example, globally, this is the situation. You make one stupid error and you don't get that visa, and you will never get that visa because you unticked the wrong box, unfortunately. Like, yes, my 3-year-old has taken narcotics to your country or something like this. That's enough. But it cannot be. If we want the society truly to benefit from this, then computer says no should never be an answer if somebody queries. And this is a problem we are not tackling here in Estonia. If we start offering our people what they seem to be looking, proactive services more and more, then what are their rights and what is their understanding of how this system works. It's very important because we cannot move ahead otherwise, but we need to move ahead because, as I said, there is a citizen drive. It's not that our public sector necessarily in all its formats is very ready to pursue future goals. Not at all. I mean, people can be lazy here as everywhere else, but it's the people's demand. So we need to really work on it, and we are. There is another important, so far luckily, theoretical point. This is, what if private sector offers and does this, well, in a quite universal way, something which we as a state cannot afford? Because this is very likely. Estonia is a tiny country, and internet companies are most bigger than Estonia is, looking at their financial capacities. What if our citizens demand something which we in principle cannot afford, but which is very mainstream and common in the wider world? We do not have a better answer to this question than the one which we've always had, because actually Estonian digital development has always been pushed by this knowing that if everybody starts to want this thing, we will not be able to afford it from the beginning. And therefore, as from the beginning, our recipe is that we scan the horizon, we see what is coming up, and when we see what is coming up, then what politicians do? They do not rush in, try to buy, try to influence it or something like this. We actually set legal space. Because if you haven't noticed, then the Estonian e-systems, they are not really, well, tech-wise Estonian developments in this sense that they are unheard of globally or elsewhere. They are pretty cheap and very available mechanisms. But what we do differently, and always have been doing differently, is this legal space setting. We set an environment where these technological developments can be used both by public sector, private sector, and all individuals. And by safe legal space setting, I mean that investments are protected, people's data is protected, companies are protected, state is protected, everybody knows their rights and obligations to operate in this legal setting, in this technological framework. And it sounds like a no-brainer. Yes, of course, you've done it for 20 years, just continue. You see something new is coming in, say it's legal in Estonia, well, set also the criteria according to which it's legal in Estonia, and just enjoy the proliferation of the startup companies in Estonia. True, this is still going on. But the problems are getting more and more complex now. And I will mention just one. We see today as well there are these little starships running around in the room, well, package delivery robots. They are on our streets now, among us ourselves. And you know, when they got the right to walk alone and unaccompanied on Tallinn streets, then it materialized that people actually treat them as other people, or at least pets. And what this means is that a starship arrives here at the side of the road, and there is a car. And now this car stops. And of course, the robot stands here, and it would not walk because it's trained the other way around. It's not trained like children. The car stopped, please go ahead, pass the pedestrian road. It's waiting for the car to go, and then it will walk when it's empty, not when the car has stopped. And we have to train our drivers and people in general that this is what happens, please do not treat them as human beings or pets. Please treat them as robots. Which made me to think about the next decade. It's only one starship, and it was pretty easy to broadcast. Don't let it walk. Just go yourself and ignore it. But what if the next robot on the street has different habits or behavioral patterns? And then comes the next, and then finally I have a robot which helps me to take care of my old grandmother. And it has some, well, very practical habits, and it knows how to do its job, but it's really bad in understanding, people's feelings, etc. Well, it will probably have some face recognition, know if somebody's sad or happy, etc. But all in all, it's not going to be a human being. How will we, as human beings, live in such a world? How can we regulate and set this legal space for these machines to operate among us, for us to remain safe in this environment? And my conclusion is that yes, you need certain level of standardization, of course, and you need certain level of legislation, and I'm quite sure that Estonia is among the front runners globally of thinking about these problems, because we want to have still this sandbox for new technologies to develop here in Estonia. And more these narrow AI functions will not only be algorithms, but will have some kind of a physical presence as well, and we want them here. So we need to tackle this problem, but unfortunately it is not anymore a legal problem only, it becomes more and more of an educational problem. In climate change, frankly speaking, developing digital societies, if I know they would only last 100 or 150 years, because then the planet will be inhabitable for human species, makes no sense. I'm not interested in such a short-term perspective. So we absolutely need to solve the climate change issue first and foremost. Thank you for listening.
That was President Tallinn inauguration speech.
Thank you, Madam President, for a very inspirational talk. We are having elections in Copenhagen, in Denmark, on June 5th. I would wish that you could actually come join and be part of that. We could use some new inspiration, and I think your thinking is very profound, very interesting. I'm very happy as well to be joined by Fleur Pellerin, who's the former minister of the French government and now the CEO and founder of Courageous Ventures in Paris.